What's up, friends? Brittany Richmond here, back with another fantastic, amazing, mind-blowing episode of the Speaker Lab podcast. I'm so excited and grateful that I get to interview amazing humans on this podcast, especially since this podcast changed my life many, many years ago and still does today. So now I get to interview amazing friends that I've met out on the trail. And today I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Nathan Wray. He is absolutely an amazing human being, so much energy. He brings so much love and intentionality to everything that he does. And it's not just working with his audience, but also the decision makers and event planners. And we're going to get all into that. And I'm so excited to dive into how we've met. You know, we've met on the speaking trail. We're speaking at the same event together. It's just awesome. And I'm so excited. I don't want to steal your thunder, Nathan. So welcome to the Speaker Lab podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's so funny because you're like, we met on the trail, but we met in a lunchroom.
Yes, we did. We met in the lunchroom. Yes.
It was a lunchroom on the trail, but yeah, absolutely. So much fun. And thank you for all the compliments. I love what I do. I think it is an honor and a privilege to be able to speak to young people, and adults too. But I just absolutely love what I do every day.
I love it. I'm so excited. So before we get started, there's a very important critical question that I ask everybody I interview, because I feel like it sets the tone. People are going to know things about you. So really, we need to know, what is your ideal walkout song when you come out on stage? Like, what is the vibe?
Oh my goodness. Are you ready?
I don't know if the audience is ready, but I'm ready.
I didn't even know about this until 3 years ago. Admittedly, because I had no interest in the artist at all. It's Justin Bieber, Baby, Baby, Baby. That has become my jam. For real.
Baby, baby, baby. That one? Oh my. Yeah. I can just picture it. You walking out on stage.
All the assemblies, when it's that awe part, I do that, and oh my goodness. It's either cringe or they start clapping and they're like, yeah.
We love both of those. I love cringe.
Yes, and both of them are equally acceptable. Yes.
I love that. Oh my goodness. Well, kind of from that, really quick, what is your pre-gig ritual? Like, what are things that you kind of lean into before, you're about to speak?
Yeah. So, the night before I'm practicing, I'm always practicing whether I have a gig or not. So it's always practice. And then, up within the first 30 minutes, it's positive self-talk. It's making sure I'm hydrated. It's power posing. And even though it may look ridiculous sometimes because the crowd is right there, I'm still in my power pose. Yeah. Yes. It's doing those things just to bring that confidence. Because that's something that I struggle with sometimes is being confident. And so I have to do those things before I get up on stage.
I love that. I think that's such a vulnerable thing we all do as speakers that people don't realize. Like, we all go, I know the rituals of many people out there, and now knowing yours, like, they're all different, but they're all very much the same. And it's all about, getting our mindset ready, making sure we're at 100% so we can pour into our audience. Because if we're not, people, they know that, like, that radiates from our message. So before we go any further, tell us, what you speak about, who you speak to, and how you got into this. Give us the background.
Yeah. So I talk to students, middle school and high school students, mostly. I do have an adult presentation, but I speak to them about the dangers of nicotine, alcohol, and tobacco, and how emotional regulation and adverse childhood experiences play a major part in whether or not we even entertain those things in our lives. I got into this because 7 years ago, I became a prevention coordinator for the Roane County Anti-Drug Coalition. I still do that. I still do that today. But part of my job was to reach out to speakers and say, hey, would you come do an assembly at our schools. And so speakers would come in and they'd tell their story. And I realized I can do that. I have a story, and I have the ability to put a presentation together, and I can inspire people, and I can relate and connect with students. So why not give it a shot? And to be honest with you, I put it off and I put it off and I put it off. And about 3 years ago is when I said, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to give it a shot. And it's been a very interesting journey. I will put it that way. Fun and exciting. Difficult and hard, but wouldn't change it for the world.
I love that. I think that's so powerful. So really you stepped into the speaking space because you saw other people sharing their story and you had a story. So you were like, I can help other people with my story.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Yep. And I think that there's often this, like, not misconception, but there's this thought where, I was just talking to somebody about it the other day where they're like, my story isn't, I got stuck on a mountain and had to live for 12 hours on snow and ice before someone, there's not that those stories aren't impactful. Cause like when we hear stories like that of just like really the human spirit is just wildly inspiring, right? Cause it's hard to kill the human spirit, right? But like the stories that I think are the most relatable are the ones that, for lack of a better term, like, they're tangible. We can touch them. Like that is so relatable to me, like that mindset, that feeling. So did you ever feel like your story wasn't good enough or like it wasn't as impactful? Like, did you struggle with that at all when you stepped into the space?
No, I guess I just felt like, the first thing I didn't understand was really how to put it together. It was really all out of sorts when I first started. And so when I started, I just started doing it. I just asked the school, will you let me come do it? Like, I'm not asking you to pay me. I'm not asking for anything in return. Will you just let me come do it? And it was great. They allowed me to do it, but the message was just out of sorts. It wasn't in any chronological order. There wasn't any pattern to it. And so that was a little bit discouraging because I didn't feel like I had a method. And it wasn't the story. I knew my story had value and I knew it had impact, but it was the method of shaping it and forming it and delivering it that I didn't have that knowledge at the time. And so when I was doing it, it just wasn't going well. And, I'd do classroom presentations and the students were like, yeah, that's okay. Like, almost like that cool story, bro. And like next, and so you walk, you walk out and you're just like, how do I get better at this? And so there was a moment where, I was questioning myself, like, do I even belong in the room with other speakers? Like, do I belong in this space? And I had to do like this real deep dive into, was this something I wanted to do or not? And, just like you said earlier, it doesn't have to be, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro 25 times and here's what I've learned.
Right.
It can be, here's a situation that I had in my life and here's how it impacted me. Here's how I got through it. And it doesn't have to be anything major. It's just how you tell your story and how much passion you bring into it and how you deliver the message.
No, I love that. I think that's great. So at what point did you go from, for lack of a better term, lack of structure in your talk where you felt like it was impactful? How did you get to the point where you are today? Because, you have such amazing feedback. Your presentations are extremely high energy, a lot of music, a lot of interaction, a lot of fun. So how did you go from where you were to where you are now? Like, what was the tipping point for you?
So I signed up for a contest, and they wanted 1 to 2 minutes of your presentation. And I struggled. Like I had I had 3 days. I signed up 3 days before the contest happened. And for those 3 days, I struggled, because I didn't really have anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was sitting down one night and I Googled like how to put a presentation together. I've done PowerPoints, right? Like,
Right.
and so it led me to how to tell your story and then finding your why. And then I ended up finding Simon Sinek's book. And it kind of helps you. I read it in like one night. And
Wow.
so I started doing everything that he had put into the book. I start like just going back through my life. What was everything that happened from the earliest I can remember to now? How can I put that in a chronological order? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I started doing. And I figured out for the contest, okay, I know which 1 to 2 minutes I want to do, because of that. And then I went and I delivered the 1 to 2 minutes, and I ended up doing pretty well in the contest. And so when I came back, I was like, okay, I do belong in the room. I can do this. And now I know I can structure this and I can deliver this. And so I came back and I reshaped the whole thing. And then I went and delivered it at a school. And it was the first time that kids came up to me afterwards and were like, can I take a picture with you? Can I tell you what happened to me? Can I tell you my story? Can I ask you a question? And that's when I knew, like, okay, I don't have it where I want it, but I'm on the right path.
Oh, good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I know, like, through that process, and that's something I'm currently working on too, because I feel like we can always level up like our performance skills, our entertainment side, like really narrowing in, like, how do we make this even more, just really impactful for our audience, leveling up our presentation and our talks and things. And I remember we had a conversation a few months back, I think, and you said, a speaker that both of us know in the industry, you're like, they gave me some feedback on my presentation, so was that feedback something that helped get you to where you are now? Like, what was the feedback? Was it structure? How did you, what was that?
It was so good. And I was so thankful for that feedback. It was structure. And it was having the main point all throughout the talk. I've never had that. I shared my story, and then at the end was like, here's the main point, right? So I used to, the title of my presentation used to be emotional regulation. I can't even remember what the rest of it was because it was so long ago. Emotional regulation, something about coping skills, right? You present that to kids and they're like, I'm out. I don't.
Right. Too many big words.
This is boring. But within that presentation, I talked about how much laughter was a coping skill for me as a kid and how I lost it. And so I started using substances as a kid in place of laughter because I didn't know how to cope with anything. And so laughter became the central theme of my presentation. So all throughout the presentation, I'm talking about laugh, how to laugh, but laugh is also an acronym. So it's not just about ha ha laughing. It's about the acronym of laugh. Love yourself unconditionally, aim for connection, use your talents, give yourself encouragement, and hope for the future. That's laugh.
I love that. And I know the title of your presentation now. So tell everybody what the title is now.
I love it. It's Laugh Your Class Off, Life's Greatest Coping Skill.
That's perfect. And I think that's so awesome. Like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that is so good for, teenagers and young people and kids, like it's going to resonate with them. It's hilarious. It's a great play on words. So I was like, oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I love that. And so that's something that I really value with community. We talk a lot about community of speakers in the industry, is especially with speakers you know and trust really well, asking for that advice. I know I've been at events where I've had speaker friends in the audience, and I've literally said, like, there's a part of the talk that is really muddy to me. It feels weird. So like, I'm not going to tell you, but like, let me know if you notice, And so that's the kind of, I really like constructive, like professional, like feedback from people. I really like that. So I love that it really helped you level up. And I think that that's so wildly impactful. So that's amazing. All of that is awesome. And there's so many things about your business that you and I have talked about one-on-one, and so many things that you've gone through as a speaker, much like we all have.
Yeah.
But oh Lord. So one of the things that I feel like we don't talk about enough in this space is saying no to opportunities, and what that looks like, and how to go about that process. Value, right? Like you and I talked, you said the value of saying no. So kind of want you to expand on that, because for our listeners, like what in the world makes you say no? Why should you say no? When you say no, what's the value of saying no?
Yeah. I think first off, there's this expectation of when you become a speaker, you have to say yes to everything so that you feel like your name is getting out there, so that you're getting the repetitions. And it doesn't matter what it is, you're just going to say yes. But there is so much value in saying no, because not every event is the right event for you. Not every audience is the right audience for you. And you'll learn as you go that this process it's not a sprint. This is a marathon. I still do a lot of breakout sessions. I don't do a lot of main stage stuff, and that's okay. I'll get to the main stage, but it's so important that you learn to say no, because there are situations that just they just don't fit. It may be that you don't have a good fit with the event organizer, and those things happen, right? We all have personalities. And we have to be able to be like, you know what? It's not anything against you. I just don't have that connection with you. And I don't feel like if we did this together that it would benefit either one of us. And I don't want there to be any negative between us at all anyway. So the last thing I want is to force something, and then I walk away from it and you walk away from it. And when you walk away, they say, hey, Nathan Wray, don't call that guy. And when I walk away from it, I say, hey, don't go do that conference.
Right.
That's an awful one. You don't want that. And it's so much better to just be able to look at the situation and say, if your gut is telling you this is not a good idea, this is not a good fit, listen to your gut. If there's an expectation that's just unrealistic, say no. It's not, if it's unfair, say no. And this, I've learned this the hard way.
I think we all have. Yes. Yeah. Very recently, Nathan learned this the hard way.
Yes. Yeah. And it's okay. It's okay, because you're going to learn lessons the hard way in this industry. But when you learn things the hard way, you grow from it and you move on. But saying no is important. The other part of that is you can end up being so busy that you don't have time for yourself or your family. And you have to be able to say no so that you have that valuable time with them.
Yeah. I mean, that just comes down to, why are you doing this in the first place? We're here to serve our audience, right? But at the same time, like, it's very much to live purposeful, fulfilled lives of our own. And if we're compromising one for the other, just like you said, like, it's important to set those boundaries. But I often tell people too, like, if you don't wake up excited for this when you're doing discovery calls and putting together proposals and things, if you're not excited, then it's probably just a no. There's not a whole lot of gray area, in my opinion, when you've got that gut feeling of like, this is not a good fit for me, whether it's, you know, them wanting you to speak on something you don't necessarily speak about, but like it's I think it's a little not easy, but it's probably easier because we've been through very similar situations where now we can say, you know, we're comfortable saying no. But when we're first getting into this industry, it's so hard to say no because you want so badly, like you said, to get out there and make a name for yourself and say yes to all the things and create momentum. And while there's definitely some truth to saying yes to all the things, like you said, it has to be aligned with who you are and what type of momentum and name you want to make for yourself. And like you said, very recently, you know, we're both very familiar with this particular event coordinator at this particular conference, but they asked something of you that wasn't what you did. And what was interesting is they asked you that after you spoke, which we both were like, what? So it was very interesting.
Yeah. The moment that any conference organizer, when you're done speaking, the moment that they ask you to change your message, that's, I mean, it's just too much, you know. You probably weren't supposed to be there in the first place. I wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. And what you said was exactly right. If you're not excited to be there, I remember getting up that day and going to the airport and thinking, oh, gosh, I have to go do this. Not I get to go do this. I have to go do this. And that's when I knew, because every day that I'm doing this, it's an I get to.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
that was a day where it was, I have to. And it was just like, oh.
Yeah. And just to round out, like saying no can lead to other opportunities, right? Like it opens doors. And I just think there's so much value in, like we said, the gut feeling, like you said. And like I said, if you don't wake up excited, I mean, maybe it's just not the right fit for you, and recommending other speakers and building that community where you can recommend people who are better fits is so impactful too. I mean, that's one of the things, like when I get on discovery calls and meet event planners and they want something that is just not what I do, then, you know, we want to still build that relationship with them and say, no, this isn't what I do, but like this person does this. Let me introduce you to that person. I know them personally, like they're excellent, you know, so that's really valuable. So saying no isn't always a no, like you're still building a relationship. So how you put that, you know, that energy out there, how you like, because they'll remember that for the future when they're working with other speakers and presenters. So
yeah, one of the things that I've started doing is when I have a discovery call, I have a list of 5 other speakers just off to the side, so that if I'm not a good fit for that, I have 5 other speakers that do other things. They don't all do the same thing. It's not all the same speech. It's all different things. And so if now I'm on a discovery call and they're like, hey, can you talk about the mechanics of what? And I'm like, oh, nope, I can't. But I know this really great speaker, and this is where they're from, and this is how you get a hold of them. I'd love to do it, but it's just that's not my conference. It's not my audience, but this is the guy that you want. It's why it's so important that you need to connect with other speakers because of this. You'll end up in situations that you don't need to be in if you don't have connections with other speakers.
I love that. And it's not just the speakers either. It's like we said, the event coordinators, like you're doing that person a favor by having that list there. So which also serves you well and your business, right? So and that's one of your superpowers too, Nathan, is like, and just for full transparency, we're both speaking at an event in July together of 2024. And we had a speakers meeting last night, actually, before this recording. And Nathan has this superpower of really pouring into the event planners and the coordinators of the event. I mean, we talk about, you know, serving them and how it's so important, because when we're there, when we're at events, we're not just helping and serving our audience. We're there to serve the event in general. So that means the event planners, the coordinators, down to respecting them enough to text them when we're on site. Do you guys need anything? I mean, they're always like, we're here to help you. It's like, no, we're actually here to help you, you know, like that's what we want to turn around. So last night on the call, Nathan was like talking to our point of contact, and, you know, he said, how can we help you? And that just really made me smile, because I was like, That is so Nathan right there. So
Yep.
that is your superpowers, friends. So our audience would really love to hear from you on the value of serving your event planners, you know, before you get to the event, at the event, and then after the event.
Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know if you've ever coordinated an event, but if you have, there's so much pressure to get it right and to have everything ready to go. And then let's talk about technology for a second. Why does it never work when you need it to work? And having people in the right places, and trusting but verifying, right? So I'll share an example. So I flew into to another state and was doing an assembly for a school, and what they had done was they were one school, but they brought multiple schools throughout the county into this one school. And so when I landed, I called the school and I said, "Hey, I just landed. I'll be in town in 2 hours. Is there anything you need? I'd love to meet up, and I'd love to just kind of take a look at the gym, and kind of see where we're at, and where I can kind of move around." And they were like, "Yeah, matter of fact, you know, can we take you to dinner and then we'll go look at the gym?" And I said, "Sure." And that gave me an opportunity to make sure that I could ask them, "Has anything happened in your school recently that I need to stay away from? So has there been a car accident? Has there been a suicide? Has there been a really bad fight, an overdose?" Because I don't want to create more trauma in the school when I'm there. So there's value in that, because you're not only thinking about the organizer, you're thinking about those students that are sitting in those seats. You're thinking about their guardians, because the last thing I want for my child to do is come home from an assembly in tears and completely just, their emotions are all out of sorts because they just had a traumatic experience at school. I don't want that for any student. And so there's so much value in asking that organizer, "Is there anything I need to stay away from?" So I asked, "Is there anything I need to stay away from?" They said, "No, you know, we've had things pretty good. The only reason we're doing this is because we got a grant, and we're using grant funding." Cool. Yeah. Great. Cool. So I love grant funding. So can we go to the school and can I take a look? My videographer will be there tomorrow as well. Can we just kind of take a look and see how we can move around? So we get to the school, and they had a play the night before. The stage was a mess, and it wasn't their fault. It was a trust but verify situation. Right. It was supposed to be taken down, and it wasn't. And so it's 8:00 at night. We're at the school. We disassemble an entire play, an entire set on the stage. And then because we have other schools coming, there's not enough room in the bleachers. And so I asked, you know, "How many students will be here?" "Well, we'll have 15 students here tomorrow." And I said, "Well, where are the rest of them going to sit?" And they said, "Well, we're probably just going to put tarps on the floor, and then they can sit on the floor." And I'm like, as a high school student, I don't want to sit on the floor. Like, I just don't want to. And so I said, "Do you guys have chairs? Like, do you just chairs anywhere? Do you have a community center that has chairs? Do you have just somewhere? Find me some chairs." And they're like, "No, we have several chairs, but you'd have to set them up." And I said, "Oh yeah, no problem." And so before you know it, it's 10:30 at night. We're pulling chairs out, these old 1950 carts with metal chairs on them. We're pulling those out in the gym. We're putting tarps on the gym floor. We're setting all these chairs up. And then we're preparing for the community night that's happening in the evening. So we have to set up tables around the end of the gym, little tents and all this stuff, tablecloths, and so we left the school at about 1 a.m.
Wow.
Someone I was talking to somebody. I really, honestly, I cannot remember who this was, but they said, I wouldn't have done that. But for me, I put myself in the mind of the organizer and the student. I want
Mm-hmm.
this to be the best experience for this, right? So if I'm the organizer, I want my community to see this as the best experience for the students and for the community. And again, if I'm the organizer, I want my students to have the best time so that when I say we're having an assembly, they're like, oh, yes, another assembly. What can I
Right.
go and learn? Right. So I'm gonna go as far as I can go to help an event organizer to make sure that they're successful. And if that includes setting up 300 chairs at 1 o'clock in the morning, then I'm going to do it. Even if that assembly starts at 8 in the morning, it doesn't matter. I want to make sure that they're successful because their success, it has an impact on mine.
Mm-hmm.
If those students would have been sitting on the floor, and could you imagine? So they have the high school come first. Could you imagine the high school students sitting on the floor? They would have been miserable. And then the middle school comes next. Could you imagine 300 middle school students sitting on a floor on tarps? It's like a water bottle, right? Like it just would have been so much.
No, that is such a good message for every speaker with every audience, right? It's just, it doesn't have to be students in a gym. It doesn't have to be sales reps at a convention center. It doesn't have to be, it's when we get to events and we're able to look at the space, whether we're there the day before or we're there the morning of for sound check or rehearsal. I think it's wildly important for us as speakers to also feel comfortable in the space with like what we're doing, what makes us like a better speaker. And I got to tell you, I'm much like you. Like, I don't want people on the floor like that. That's not the experience that I've created for the audience member. Right. So I would definitely be the speaker that's like, let's get some chairs in here and I'll set them up, like, so it's also, it is beneficial to serve them, but again, it's also serving us too. And like our performance at the time, right? Like what's going to help us execute at 100% too. Like that's really important to know. Cause then all of this is correlated, right? Like all of this just goes hand in hand into growing your speaking business. And we talk so much about, getting gigs from gigs and your referral business takes off. And these are the things that event planners and coordinators talk about, especially in things like testimonials. And it's not just about how you performed on stage, right? That's such a small part of what we do really in the greater scheme of the entire experience with the coordinator, right? Because if we're booking events 6 to 12 months in advance, we're talking, we've met with this person sometimes they've known us for a year and how we've handled leading up to the event, how we've handled after the event. So it's a layered thing. It's just a process with each individual coordinator and how we can serve them and their audience and their event. So.
Yeah. And I think if you're in the speaking business, you probably are you probably have a servant's heart, right? It's already there. We can get like blinders on. We can put those on and we can get so focused on what we're doing that we're not worried about everything else that's going off. But if you can take those blinders off when you're at an event, and one of my favorite things to do is text the organizer the morning of and ask them if they drink coffee and what kind of coffee do they like. I don't drink coffee, but I will stop and I will get you coffee.
Nathan, how do you function? Yeah. Like you cannot.
It's ADHD is what it is. That's how I function. But yeah, so I do those things, and I'll stay after. If my flight isn't leaving till the next day, I'll stay for the whole conference. And if there's a tech issue and I can help, I'll help. If they need the trash taken out, I'll take the trash out. If they need bathrooms cleaned, I'll clean the bathrooms. Because you're right. They talk to other conference organizers. And if you want to book more gigs, that's just one of those things that you can do to help yourself book more gigs. And don't do it from a perspective of, well, if I do this, I'll get more gigs.
Right.
Just do it to love them because they're a person, and to value them, and know that they have a family at home too, where they don't want to be at that conference until 2 o'clock in the morning cleaning everything. So you can love on them, you can help them, you can provide for them. And isn't that what we're supposed to be about as speakers, is setting the example and being everything that we ourselves talk about?
Yeah, no, I agree. And there, with that too, I'm sure there are some people listening that are, they have had situations where they've had to show up right before an event because maybe a travel issue, or that's just how the schedule worked out, and they have to leave.
Yeah.
They have to leave right afterwards, right? Like that does happen. That doesn't mean that ways to serve the audience. I know, like, one of the things I really like to do is like follow-up videos I do like a week later that I have them push out to everybody that was registered for the event to kind of like have another touch, or I buy them little gifts, if I can't stay around for too long. There's a lot of ways to serve your audience that isn't when you're on site. So like, because I don't want people listening being, well, I don't have time to like do all these things. It's about intention, not time, right? It's like, what's your intention?
Yeah. Even, again, you don't have time. Sending a handwritten card.
Yes.
When you get back, that means so. When I get a handwritten card, I'm like, man, they really thought about me like that. Yes. They put some time and effort into this, and now I feel valued. That makes a huge difference. Even a phone call, not a phone call of, hey, thanks for having me, or when can we talk about next year? But a phone call of, hey, I just wanted to tell you that I really appreciate the hard work. Your conference was absolutely amazing. And I just wanted to tell you that I think that you did such a wonderful job. That provides so much value to a conference organizer. They need to hear that, because sometimes they do a conference, they don't hear that.
I know.
They don't hear it. What they hear sometimes is, here's how you can do better. Right.
Exactly. Like,
so encouragement is so beneficial. There's so much value in it for them, and for you. I mean, why not be an encouraging person?
Yeah, no, I agree. It really just hammers home how much this business is a relationship business. And there are so many relationships to be built. It's with other speakers, it's with your audience members, it's with your event planners, coordinators. Once you start building a team, I mean, all these relationships have all their different purposes, right? And that's so incredibly important to lean into those when you can. Like, it's just such an underrated thing. It's so simple, but it creates such an impact, right? Like, it's such an impact. And I really
it's incredible. And the relationship thing, it's really interesting, the relationships that I've built in this business. And I never thought that I would be connected to so many people that are doing the same thing. And it's just been, I don't know, it's been this wild ride, and they have so much input and so much wisdom. And if you can tap into that, and if you can accept feedback, if you can't take feedback, you're in the wrong business. But if you can handle feedback, listen for it, invite it, that's part of relationship building. But you just become better when you get feedback, and not necessarily just a better speaker, but you become a better person, I think. Yeah.
I do. I think so. And I'm so excited because at the event we met at, like in the lunchroom, as you said before, because it was in the lunchroom, it was I was very fortunate and grateful. I keynoted an event, and then it was lunch afterwards, right? So I went to the lunchroom. You want to talk about serving the audience, right? We're very much the same. It's like, I don't think I ate that whole day because people were just like, let's just have these conversations. But I love creating space for the audience members because they created space for me, to be up on stage and serve them. So, and then, we met in the lunchroom and you said, I'm a professional speaker. I'm like, oh my gosh, so excited. And then we've connected, we exchanged Instagrams, all the things. And now you're speaking at that event, which is coming up, in just a few days now.
Yep.
And we'll both be at the same event in July. I just think it's really cool to not only and we know different people, but we're all interconnected. It's just very much this really cool support system in the community that when you actually, get into it and start meeting people and building those relationships, it's really neat to see what happens.
Yeah, it really is. And, there's a handful of people that I will Instagram message, and you're one of them, that I will say, hey, this happened and I'm not really sure what to think or what to do or what to say. And it's so great just to have people in the industry to be like, oh yeah, I've been there. I've done that. Here's A, B, and C, and let me know how it works out. And I love that everyone that I've kind of gone through that with has said, let me know how it works out, because it just shows that I care about what you're going through and I want to know how it turns out, because if you need more, I'm here to give you more and I'm here to help. And those relationships are so beneficial and helpful.
I agree. At the end of the day, we're all on the same mission, right? Which is to serve with our stories and our messages. And like you said, we servants at heart step into the speaking space, because I like to think that normal people wouldn't. And I mean that in a loving way, because
right.
It's such, it's like the number one fear of a human being. So I'm like, oh, you want to speak professionally? Come to the circle of craziness. It's fine.
Yes. Welcome.
What's going on? So no, we're all together. It works out. Thank goodness we all found each other, right?
Yes.
We're all this community. So,
yes.
But no, this has been absolutely great. You've provided so much value. And I hope that everybody listening is just thinking of all the ways at their next event that they could, level up their service, or how to pour more into the relationships of their event planners, or it's just, affirmation to what they already are doing. Oh, this is good.
Yeah.
This is something I want to do. Keep doing it. Feels natural. And I think that that's really important too. So before we go, tell everybody, what is your absolute favorite part of being a professional speaker?
Oh man. It's seeing the light bulb go off for the audience. I think there's moments in my speech where, for kids and adults, where I get to see this moment of, oh yeah, that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I love seeing that. And I also love seeing, the emotion, in the audience as well. Just knowing that our stories can make such an impact that it can, invoke emotion out of someone. But for me, it really is, especially for kids, seeing that light bulb go off for them. When you're talking about statistics and, there's a part in my speech where I talk about how I have more than 6 adverse childhood experiences, and an adult who has 6 or more adverse childhood experiences, is likely to lose about 20 years off the end of their lifespan. But if you have positive childhood experiences, they can really kind of wash those adverse childhood experiences away. right? So, and then I give them examples of what positives are. And when I give them those examples, just one caring adult, and that light bulb for them goes, they have one caring adult and they're making a positive impact in my life. Or community tradition. You can be involved in a community tradition, like you play sports, or you may be in a pageant, or there may be a festival that you go to every single year. And that light bulb goes off for them. Like, I go to that community tradition all the time. So for me, it's just that moment when I see that student and their eyes light up, and I'm going to get emotional, but their eyes light up and they're like, that's me. He's talking about me. And that's my favorite moment.
That is every single person that I have had the honor of interviewing for this podcast. I ask that question, and every single person has said that basically it's the interaction with the audience afterwards, right? Like that is their favorite part. That is my favorite part. It is hearing their stories. It is hearing the fact that, because we speak to, like Rory Vaden said, we're most powerfully positioned to serve the person we once were. So we're speaking to, and I'm going to get emotional, our former selves, right? Like who we were when we needed this message. And so we see ourselves, and it's not just our audience of young people, but it's the corporate speakers, it's the nonprofit speakers, it's the faith-based speakers, it's the speakers in, the collegiate university space. Everybody is speaking in some capacity to who they were when they needed their message. So when you hear the fact that you've reached your former self, right, that you've reached this person, it is unreal, that feeling. And I feel like we chase that feeling. And I think that that's what keeps people going in this space, is their audience members.
I spent so much time as a teenager chasing a high that I could never obtain. But now, like, that's the new high for me. Like, and I get to see it all of the time. And it just makes my day. My other favorite thing about being a speaker, and I'll make this very, very quick, is coming home and seeing my kids. That is my other favorite thing. Because they know that I leave to go inspire kids, but they know that I do it for them. And that's my other favorite thing. Yeah.
I love that. And I'll never forget what you said to me a couple of weeks ago. You said, I don't need to be on stage. I have to be on stage. And that was like such an impactful thing that I heard you say, because what you're saying is I feel like when we say, I need to be on stage, it's self-serving, which we love what we do, right? But like but then when you say I have to be on stage, there's an urgency for the audience member. And I think that if we continue to lead with that, that's where we find success in this business, right? Is constantly leading with the audience first. So Nathan, where can they find you, my friend? Like, where are all the things? Tell us the website, like all the way to hold of you.
Yeah. So, nathanrayspeaks.com. You can find me there. And I also really want to plug, the nonprofit, because we do such amazing things here. But you can find us at rowanantidrug.org, or at RCADC1, on Instagram. You can also find me at that Nathan Wray on Instagram. I'm so blessed to be able to do what I do. And the urgency is, there are so many kids out there and adults that are just struggling, and they're going through things, and they need to know that they matter and they have value and they are worthy of love. And that is the message we need to continue sharing and speaking and believing. So that's what we're doing.
Oh, I love it. Nathan, I'm so grateful we have met. I'm so honored to be on this journey with
Me
you
too.
as a speaker, but also to watch what you do and what you do with your audiences. And it's so nice to be in such alignment. So everybody go check out Nathan, give this episode a share, a like, all the things, because we would love to hear how it resonated with you. So until next time, friends, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Speaker Lab podcast. See you later.
Bye.